For centuries, uttering the name of Satan was a sentence of condemnation. But today, in 2025, that same name appears in headlines and in classrooms. From forbidden symbol to a banner of freedom, rights, and critical education. A movement that does not worship demons, but divides the entire world. Coders. Is the Satanic Temple a threat to faith, or a reminder that freedom also protects the forbidden? Coders. Today we dive into one of the most intense controversies of our time. A name that for centuries was synonymous with condemnation and darkness. Today rises as a banner of rights, education, and freedom. The Satanic Temple does not sacrifice animals nor worship demons, but it divides believers, politicians, and entire communities. In 2025, this movement announces the opening of secular schools, directly challenging those who have used religion as the foundation of education. What was once condemned from the pulpits is now debated in courts, in the news, and even in classrooms. And here, the mystery arises. Coders, are we facing a mere provocation that will fade with time? Or a new model of religion that will change the future of faith and education? Introduce the origin of the topic. For centuries, the mere mention of Satan was synonymous with terror, heresy, and damnation. For Christian traditions, he represented absolute rebellion against the divine, the symbol of everything forbidden. Anything associated with his name was considered dangerous and accursed. But in the 21st century, that same figure has been taken as a banner. Not to worship it, but to challenge the power of established religions. In 2013, in the United States, the Satanic Temple was born, an activist movement that uses the image of Satan as a metaphor for freedom, justice, and resistance. And here is where the mystery arises. Coders. Their message is clear. They do not seek to worship the devil, but to fight for secularism, freedom of belief, and the separation of church and state. And with that provocative strategy, they have achieved what once seemed impossible. Taking Satan from the pages of the Bible to the courts, the media, and now even the classrooms. But coders, the story doesn't end with its beginnings. What is truly controversial is happening right now. Today, in 2025, Coders, the Satanic Temple, is back in the headlines. Not for occult rituals or dark myths, but because it has announced the opening of schools with educational programs based on secular values, critical thinking, and equity. And it does so in none other than the United States, a country where the tension between religion and public education has never stopped burning. There, where some states promote prayers in classrooms or display the 10 Commandments in school spaces, this group rises as a challenge that unsettles both politicians and religious communities. What began as an activist movement now becomes an educational project capable of sparking national debates. But coders, to understand the magnitude of what is happening, we must look at the contrast that makes it so controversial. For centuries, the mere mention of Satan was enough to provoke fear, condemnation, and persecution. His name represented rebellion against God, absolute evil, and eternal damnation. No one in their right mind would have dared to use it as a public banner without risking their life or reputation. Today, that same figure appears at press conferences, in lawsuits, and in educational lectures. What was once a symbol of darkness is now presented as a banner of freedom, civil rights, and social justice. The contrast is brutal. What was once an untouchable taboo has become a tool of activism. What was once condemned from pulpits is now debated in courts. What in another era was a sign of eternal punishment is now an argument to open schools and demand equality in public spaces. And it is precisely in that clash between the old and the modern where the true controversy is born. And now, in the midst of this radical clash, coders, comes the question that divides believers, politicians, and academics alike. The Satanic Temple does not sacrifice animals, does not worship demons, does not summon occult rituals. What it does is even more provocative. It uses the most feared name in the Christian tradition as a political and cultural banner. Here lies the great controversy. Are we facing a mere provocation, a disguise designed to irritate religious sectors, or a legitimate movement that truly seeks to defend freedom of worship and equality of rights? For many, the Satanic Temple is a direct threat to traditional values, a mockery that wounds faith and destabilizes moral principles. But for others, it is an uncomfortable mirror, a way of exposing the hypocrisy of those who demand religious freedom, only when it favors their own religion. The conflict is set. Is the Satanic Temple an enemy of faith, or a reminder that in a free society, all beliefs, even the most controversial, have the right to exist? Coders, we've reached the heart of the debate, the opposing stances that divide believers, politicians, and activists. For some, the Satanic Temple is an open insult, a blatant mockery of the Christian faith. They see it as an attempt to normalize the forbidden, to stain sacred symbols, and to corrupt values that, in their view, uphold society's morality. For this group, the idea that a movement with the name Satan wants to open schools is simply unacceptable. But for others, the Satanic Temple represents something completely different. They say it's not about worshipping the devil, but about using a provocative symbol to deliver a powerful message. No religion should be imposed over another, least of all in public education. For these defenders, the Satanic Temple is not a threat, but an uncomfortable voice that guarantees plurality and protects freedom of belief for everyone, even for those who believe in nothing at all. But the most puzzling part, coders, is not in external opinions, but in the paradox that defines the movement itself. The contradiction is evident. A group that carries the name Satan does not preach darkness, but instead proclaims values like freedom, equality, and critical education. For many, it's a provocative disguise, a move designed to shock, generate headlines, and gain visibility. What better way to attract media attention than by taking over the most feared symbol of the Christian tradition? However, others claim the strategy goes far beyond provocation. That the use of Satan is not a joke or a mockery, but a metaphor intended to break with dogmas and remind us that religious freedom includes even what is uncomfortable, controversial, and marginalized. Thus, the Satanic Temple exists in a constant tension between being perceived as a media spectacle and the possibility of being a true guarantor of rights in a world where religion and politics are still dangerously intertwined. And to better understand this paradox, coders, we only need to look at the facts that have already marked the recent history of the Satanic Temple. The Satanic Temple is not just rhetoric or provocation. It has already won several legal cases in the United States, successfully defending the separation of church and state. In these cases, they demanded equal treatment compared to traditional religious organizations, proving that their strategy goes beyond symbolism and carries legal weight. In addition, their own official texts surprise those who judge them from prejudice. Their so-called 7 tenets do not speak of darkness or destruction, but of compassion, justice, respect, and the pursuit of knowledge. Values that, paradoxically, coincide with many teachings we usually associate with conventional religions. And now, in 2025, this movement has taken an even more controversial step. It plans to open schools that provide education under secular and critical thinking principles. An initiative that has generated global headlines and at the same time sparked the fury of religious sectors who see this as a direct threat to their beliefs. These facts confirm that the Satanic Temple is not just a media curiosity. It is a cultural and political force capable of generating change, lawsuits, protests, and debates that now permeate the entire social landscape. And after all this, coders, the big question remains open. Are we witnessing the birth of a new form of religion that could transform the future of education, or merely a media provocation destined to fade over time? Is the Satanic Temple truly a banner of freedom and equality, or a dangerous challenge that threatens the foundations of traditional faith? The mystery is not resolved. And the answer, coders, may depend more on what each of us believes than on what this movement proclaims.